Looney Tunes is one of the most iconic animation series to date. The series is produced through Warner Brothers Entertainment and first premiered in the 1930s alongside its sister series, Merrie Melodies. The series today can also be seen being referenced in other TV shows, comic strips, and even movies.
I thought I saw a putty cat. Oh, I did.
Friz Freleng, along with Walt Disney, were working at a Kansas City film ad company where they were in charge of designing animated commercials for movies. Walt Disney eventually moved to California, and shortly after, he wrote a letter to Friz asking him to move to California along with him. Friz was reluctant at first, but eventually he accepts. Together they made many successful cartoons, but one of the more well-known ones was Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. Down the line, Friz and Disney would eventually have a falling out, which resulted in both of them deciding to go their separate ways. Soon after, Disney, along with the help of iWorks, created the first popular sound cartoon called Steamboat Willie. Shortly after, Friz also decides to make a sound cartoon called Bosko the Talk-Ink Kid.
Alright, Bosko, show me what you can do. Okay, boss, what's this here?
Around that time, Mickey Mouse became super popular. Even other studios were trying to create their very own version of the mouse, but the end result usually just looks like an off-brand version of the original. Friz explains that people were just trying to imitate Disney, but after a while, they realized that they can't beat him, they'll just do their own thing. Eventually, Friz got introduced to a producer named Leon Schlesinger. Schlesinger had a deal with Warner Brothers to produce musical short subjects, and with Warner Brothers deciding to release their very own animation series at that time, the main goal for starting this series was to promote their music Warner Brothers had acquired from Brunswick Records, along with the 4 publishers for about $28 million, and they were in desperate need to promote their sales of sheet music. This led to the development of the first ever Looney Tunes short, Sinking in the Bathtub, featuring Bosko as the main character. This black and white short had a number of cool characters and featured synchronized speech and dancing. However, despite gaining popularity, Bosko and other characters from the first short had to be abandoned by Warner Brothers due to copyright issues. In 1935, the first ever major Looney Tunes star, Porky Pig, made his debut. This is also when Looney Tunes released his iconic song Merry Go Round broke down. And the Porky Pig signature catchphrase, "That's all, folks." Eventually, Warner Bros. Would start making shorts under the name Merrie Melodies as well. Initially, Looney Tunes was more story-driven, and Merrie Melodies was used to promote Warner Bros. Musical properties. However, over time, the two names became virtually intertwined. The Looney Tunes didn't make a more noticeable change until the arrival of Tess Avery. Schlesinger was looking for a director at that time and hired Tess Avery. The first cartoon he directed was with the character Porky Pig. Tess Avery's motives were to turn the Looney Tunes into star comedians. Out of all the cartoons Tess Avery produced, one in particular stood out the most, and eventually would become the face of the Looney Tunes.
What's up, Doc? There's a wabbit down there, and I'm trying to catch him.
Buzz was voiced by Mel Blanc, who essentially voiced almost the entire Looney Tunes cast. The cartoon was so well received, the audience would call the studio to ask when would they see more of that rabbit. There was also a character named the Crackpot Quail that acted similar to Bugs Bunny, but that character didn't gain the attention that Buzz did.
You know, Doc, you're right!
You know, you look just like a wabbit. Come here. Listen, Doc. Now, don't spread this around. But, confidentially, I am a wabbit!
Tess Avery would eventually clash with Schlesinger over creative differences, and eventually parting ways from Warner Brothers to go work at MGM in the cartoon division. During the 1950s, the Looney Tunes shorts began airing on networks and syndicated television. The episodes were heavily edited in order to remove scenes from dramatic violence, smoking, alcohol, and racial satire in order to make them safe for children of all ages. The broadcast of Looney Tunes shorts on different television channels took the series to new heights in popularity. The 3 main writers in the golden age were Warren Foster, Ted Pierce, and Michael Martez. All 3 of them came from working at the Fleischer Studio. which was considered the funniest studio at that time, producing shows like Popeye and Betty Boop. When watching an episode of Looney Tunes, these writers are shown to make their interests known. Ted Pierce was shown to be more into the parody element when writing the episode. Warren Foster was the songwriter of the group. He did cartoons where a lot of the characters did songs that he would write. He also loved to have a character to make a reference to New York.
Plenty of room in the center of the car. Push in, plenty of room. Push in. I used to wait on the shuttle from Times Square to Grand Central.
Michael Maltese was known for putting in opera references and was known for his highbrow wordplay.
Well, I guess I'm the goat. What?
The writers at Looney Tunes were also artists, and when they drew up a script, they did it like a comic book with a storyboard panel. The reason for the comic script format is so that it's extremely visual, and so that they can see their ideas come to life. When it came to gags, it was explained that they would have something called a no section. This is where they wouldn't say no to a gag idea. They threw every gag idea on the table and kept coming up with idea after idea. Only when they have enough ideas to fill up a 7-minute cartoon, that's when they start to reduce the gags down till they have the best gags that are left. Eventually, Foster, Pierce, and Maltese would leave Warner Brothers and go work for Hanna-Barbera because they could make more money. Eventually, John Dunn would get hired on to become a new writer. Frizz considered him to be one of the greatest geniuses of all times. Frizz also states that Dunn's a better writer than the previous three, and apparently he drew so well that when he boarded something, it could basically be put into production. Dunn would work for Warner Brothers for the next 3 years.
Hello, my baby. Hello, my honey. Hello, my ragtime gal. Send me a kiss, my wife. Baby, my heart's on fire. If you refuse me, honey, you lose me. Then you'll be left alone. Oh, baby, telephone and tell me I'm your own.
In the 1970s through early 90s, several feature films and television specials were produced, mostly centered around the two most popular Looney Tunes characters, Buzz and Daffy. Also in the 70s, many Looney Tunes characters made their way into the amusement park business. Different theme parks got the license to use Looney Tunes characters as mascots. Throughout the 80s and 90s, Warner Brothers continued to make new Looney Tunes shorts, and also pushed the series into the feature film business, like Daffy Duck's Fantastic Island, which parodies the popular 1970 series, Fantasy Island.
Look, boss, the plane! The plane! Where? The plane!
In 1988, for the first time ever, the audience saw the Looney Tunes characters appear alongside their Disney rivals in the Oscar-winning live-action film, Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I'm only mentioning this movie briefly because the Looney Tunes just made cameos and weren't the main focus of the movie, and that this will be the final time Mel Blanc will voice Bugs before his death a year later. In 1996, the Looney Tunes shared the screen with NBA legend Michael Jordan in a live-action film, Space Jam. This time, Buzz was voiced by Billy West. Many of you might know him as the voice of Doug or Fry from Futurama. The movie's main plot point revolves around Squawkhammer, an alien amusement park owner on Moron Mountain, who's looking for a new main attraction for his park. His underlings, the Nerdlocks, suggest they should get the Looney Tunes to be the attraction at the park. Squawkhammer told the Nerdlocks to bring the Looney Tunes here, even if they have to use force. The Nerdlocks went to the Looney Tunes world and tied up Bugs, and told the rest of the Tunes they are coming with them. The Looney Tunes laughed it off until they did this. Since the Nerdlocks aren't that bright, Buzz was able to trick them by making up a fake rule that they had to give them a chance before they were able to capture them. Buzz and the gang decided to challenge them to a game of basketball. They assumed it would be easy since the Nerdlocks are tiny with stubby arms and legs, but that changed.
Hey, little pig. Boo.
Wet myself.
They were able to transform by taking the talent of the best basketball players in the world. Because of this, Bugs and the gang decides to get help from Michael Jordan, who isn't playing professional basketball and is now a professional baseball player. Michael was reluctant at first, but eventually he decides to help Bugs and the gang.
Let's play some basketball.
This movie was also the first time the character Lola Bunny first premiered. She would later appear in other Looney Tunes series such as Baby Looney Tunes, The Looney Tunes Show, and a new Looney Tunes show formerly known as Wabbit. More on these shows later. Michael and the Looney Tunes get suited up for the game against the Monstars and got crushed in the first half of the game. Thanks to Buzz quit thinking by convincing everyone that Michael had secret stuff that helped improve his basketball skills. It's actually just plain tap water. He and Jordan rally up the team and dominate the third quarter using old school Looney Tunes gags. During a timeout, Jordan raised the stakes with Swaghammer. If the Looney Tunes win, the Monstars have to return their stolen talent they got from the other basketball players. But if the Monstars win, Swaghammer can take Michael and make him a new attraction for Marvin Mountain. After making the deal, Swaghammer ordered the Monstars to play more rougher in order to achieve an easier victory. This resulted in most of the teams getting injured except for Michael, Buzz, Daffy, and Lola. With 1 point down, the Looney Tunes needed one more player or they would get disqualified. Luckily, Bill Murray showed up in the last second to fill the spot. Murray pulls off some impressive moves to help Jordan gain the ball. Jordan jumps for a dunk shot but is grabbed by the Monstars. Jordan extends his arm and scores the winning basket, making the Looney Tunes the winner. After the game, Jordan sees the Monstars getting chewed out by Swaghammer. Jordan helped the Monstars realize they don't listen to Swaghammer because they were smaller than him at that time. The Monstars put Swaghammer into a rocket and sends him to the moon. Afterwards, they gave back the stolen talent and the Nerdlocks are recruited into the Looney Tunes. Shortly after, Jordan gets dropped off at his next baseball game.
We're tiny, we're toony, we're all a little loony. And in this cartoony, we're invading your TV.
Tiny Toon Adventures is an animated television series that ran in the early 90s. This was the first joint collaboration with Warner Brothers and Amblin Entertainment. Tiny Toons Adventure is a cartoon set in a fictional town named Acme Acres. This is where most of the Tiny Toons and Looney Tunes characters live. The characters attend Acme University, a school whose facility primarily consists of classic Looney Tunes characters such as Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, Porky Pig, and others. The university was created in order to teach the Tiny Toons on how to become funnier, just like the Looney Tunes. And just like the original Looney Tunes, this series also incorporates cartoon violence and slapstick gag humor.
Like this? Yo! Or did you spoil them like this?
The series parodied current events of the early 90s and Hollywood culture. Tiny Toons centers around a group of young cartoon characters who attend Acme University to be the next generation of Looney Tunes characters. Most of the Tiny Toons characters were designed to resemble as a younger version of the Looney Tunes characters. Some even displayed similar traits just like the Looney Tunes characters. The main characters are Buster Bunny and Babs Bunny,
No relation.
Plucky Duck, Hampton J. Pig, and many others. There are also two human characters, Montana Max and Elmira Duff, who both serve as the main antagonists of the series, and they also are students at Acme University. Elmira is an extreme pet lover.
I'll take you home and lock you in a nice little cage and never ever let you out except to pet you and love you and hug you.
While Montana Max is a spoiled rich brat. Taking care of the Tiny Toons are the original Looney Tunes. The majority of the grown-ups teach classes at Acme University and fill in as mentors for the Tiny Toons. After the show's cancellation, one of the main Tiny Toons got his own spin-off called The Plucky Duck Show, but the show only lasted 13 episodes. Premiering on Fox in 1991, the series follows the adventures of the Tasmanian Devil. This time, he's a teenager living with his family in a fictional place called Tasmania. In this series, Taz is played by Jim Cummings. Some of you might know him as the voice of Dr. Robotnik or Winnie the Pooh. Taz also has a job in Tasmania, working for Bob and his mom at a hotel where Taz sits on a pedestal and let the guests feed him. Other characters in this show are Bull Gator and Axel, who in the first episode try to capture Taz and sell him off to a zoo. Taz's sister and little brother, Molly and Jake, his mom, Jean, and his dad, Hugh. Taz's dad is based off of Bing Crosby, and he's shown numerous times breaking the fourth wall in the show.
Well now, it certainly is refreshing to see my two lovely progeny engaged in such a lively and spirited debate. Far be it from me to interfere. No, sir. I just thought I'd drop by in a fatherly-like cameo to say something clever, then mosey along and return at the end of the show to deliver today's comic punchline. Bye for now.
And who I mentioned earlier, Taz's boss, Bushwhacker Bob, and his mom, who are owners of a hotel. This show lasted for 4 seasons and would later on rerun on Cartoon Network until 1997.
Whenever there's a crime or trouble.
trouble that no one can solve at all, it seems. That's when they come and on the double, Sylvester and Tweety Mysteries.
Sylvester and Tweety Mysteries aired from the late 90s to the early 2000s on Kids WB. The show follows the Looney Tunes characters Sylvester and Tweety Bird, along with their owner, Granny. Also a bulldog whose name is Hector, as they try to solve mysteries. Usually Sylvester tries to eat Tweety in the middle of solving a mystery, but Hector acts as Tweety's bodyguard and will hit Sylvester whenever he tries to attempt to. The first season was dedicated to the memory of Fred Freeling, who had passed away a month earlier when the show premiered. The first season also had a 1 case per episode formula, but in later seasons switched to 2 cases. Sylvester narrates all through the episodes while still trying to devour Tweety, although most of the time he's either stopped by Hector or Tweety outsmarts him. Despite the back and forth between Tweety and Sylvester, they get along for the most part, and Sylvester would protect Tweety whenever anyone else tried to hurt him.
Hey there everybody, it's a loonyful day to play the baby Looney Tunes way.
This show featured the Looney Tunes characters, but in toddler form. The show premiered as a full series on June 3, 2001, and continued to air on Cartoon Network from 2004 to 2006. When the series ended, it began airing reruns until 2010. This show was marked as the first preschool animation series from Warner Brothers Animation. It also was the final time Melissa Duck would make an appearance. She would later be replaced by Tina Russo in the Looney Tunes show. A typical episode would run 22 minutes in a 2-episode format with a musical segment. Usually the baby Looney Tunes will learn a lesson at the end of each episode. The first season focused on the characters and their growth at Granny's house as the main setting. But in season 2, it shifted to the baby Looney Tunes exploring the world for the first time. In 1997, when Warner Brothers Animation first announced the show, it was originally under the name Little Looney Critters. However, in April 1st, 1999, they changed the name to Baby Looney Tunes. This series only lasted 2 seasons with a total of 52 episodes.
Doc Dodgers, he's fighting tyranny in the 24th and 1/2 century.
Based on the 1953 animation short, Duck Dodgers in the 24th and a half century, the animated series aired from August 2003 to November 2005. The series is a sci-fi comedy starring Daffy Duck as the main character, and Porky Pig, who plays the role of his subordinate, the Space Cadet, who is often seen as the brains of the two.
Activate the auxiliary energy core.
But we don't have an auxiliary.
What?
You burned it out when you used the rocket thruster to make toast.
Can't a guy enjoy a crispy English muffin around here?
Dodgers is seen as a typical clueless, lovable moron who usually needs the cadets' help to solve most of the problems. A lot of familiar characters from the original Looney Tunes show also make an appearance in the series. They're given characteristics in order to fit into the Dodgers universe, like Elmer Fudd becomes a parasitic mind-altering alien disease known as the Fudd, and Wile E. Coyote became a predator-like alien hunter. The series also introduced a new character, the Martian Queen, who plays the antagonist and love interest of Duck Dodgers in the show. This cartoon is highly praised as one of the greatest and funniest Warner Bros. Cartoons of all times, and has also won an Annie Award for music and animated television production in 2004. The movie starts out with a classic Looney Tunes gag of Buzz and Daffy arguing over if it's duck season or rabbit season. If you've seen Looney Tunes, you know how this gag ends. Daffy gets fed up playing second string to Bugs, while Bugs just sit there munching on the carrot. Daffy airs his complaints to the Warner Bros. Executives and tells them they have to choose between him and Bugs. Obviously this didn't go the way Daffy thought it would.
Wait! I haven't tried toadying, kowtowing, or butt-tiffing yet. I'm still begging here. Wait.
Daffy got fired by the vice president of comedy, Kate Holton, who's played by Jenna Elfman. A security guard by the name of DJ Drake, who's played by Brendan Fraser, was sent to escort him off the premises. But this led to a wild goose chase, which resulted in half the studio getting destroyed, which in turn gets DJ fired in the process. Feeling discouraged, DJ goes home, unaware that Daffy has stowed away in his backpack. While entering his home, he receives a message from his father, action film star Damian Drake, played by Timothy Dalton, who is actually a secret agent. Damian instructs his son to travel to Las Vegas to find his associate, Dusty Tales, and find a mystical diamond called the Blue Monkey. Cut it back to the Warner Brothers studio. It seems like the Buzz and Daffy cartoons just don't work without Daffy. Katie's given an ultimatum of getting Daffy back ASAP or she's fired, so she heads over to DJ's place to ask him if he knows the whereabouts of Daffy, only to discover that DJ is gone. Kate finds out that DJ and Daffy went to Las Vegas and uses Damien's spy car to track them down. They were able to track down Daffy by literally running into him in the middle of the road. DJ and Daffy are on the run for Yosemite Sam, who's an operative of the Acme Corporation. Thanks to the car's flight mode, they were able to escape while Yosemite Sam ran into a building. Eventually, the spy car crashes mid-air because it ran out of gas, leaving the gang stuck in the middle of the desert. Eventually, they stumble upon Area 52, where they meet a woman who goes by the code name Mother. She plays a video recording which reveals that the blue monkey has the power to devolve humans into monkeys and evolve them back again. Acme intends on using the blue monkey on all of mankind to manufacture their products and to turn them back to purchase them. Marvin the Martian, who was a prisoner in the facility, escapes and leads a group of fellow alien inmates to obtain a playing card. After seeing the card has Mona Lisa's face on it, the group concluded they must view the painting in Louvre, located in Paris. They discover that the card contains a viewing window, and looking through it, the window reveals that the Mona Lisa has a map of Africa hidden beneath. Elmer Fudd appears and reveals he is also an Acme operative and chases Buzz and Daffy through the gallery for the card, while Katie is kidnapped by Mr. Chairman's bodyguard. DJ rescues Katie, and Elmer is disintegrated by Buzz after jumping out of the artwork. Buzz and Daffy reunite with DJ and Kate and they leave Paris. The gang travels to Africa, meeting Granny, Sylvester, and Tweety, who escorted them to the ruins of the Jungle Temple where they found the blue monkey. However, Granny and company revealed themselves to be Mr. Chairman, Mr. Smith, and the Tasmanian Devil in disguise. Mr. Chairman uses a disintegration gun to transport himself and DJ and the crew to the Acme headquarters, where he forces DJ to give him the diamond in exchange for his father's freedom, which he breaks the promise once he gets his hand on the blue diamond. Marvin is sent to place the blue diamond on the Acme satellite, which will fire an energy beam around the world to turn everyone, except for Mr. Chairman, into monkeys. DJ and Kate rescue Damien from a death trap, while Buzz and Daffy pursue Marvin into space. Buzz is incapacitated, which prompted Daffy to become in order to destroy the blue monkey. And a hint of irony, the transforming energy being only strikes Mr. Chairman, turning him into a monkey. Buzz and Daffy returns to Earth, where Daffy discovers the whole adventure was staged to make a film. This series is described by Warner Brothers as an action comedy. Loonatics Unleashed was intended to be a blend of the classic Looney Tunes short cleverness combined with a modern animated action series. The characters were designed with a sleek, futuristic superhero look. This was done because the execs thought the classic Looney Tunes looked stale. These were the pre-production designs that Warner Brothers execs were originally going to use, but eventually had to be slightly redesigned to have a more softer look, mainly because the parents didn't like the menacing expression the pre-production designs had. The setting of Loonatics Unleashed happened in the year 2772. This is when a meteor struck the city at Metropolis. Rather than obliterating the city, the meteor crashes into a waterfront, which sends out a shockwave that causes a portion of the city's residents to attain superpowers. A mysterious woman named Zedavia selected 6 teenagers to create a superhero team. This recently formed group is known as the Loonatics, and they just also happen to be the descendants of the original Looney Tunes cast as well.
Loonatics is a new version of Looney Tunes that focuses on a new generations of Looney Tunes characters that are descendants of all the classic characters.
The show had a darker tone that takes place in a futuristic dystopian setting. A lot of fans complained about the TV show and felt like this was just a cheap attempt to appeal to certain demographics at the expense of classic Looney Tunes characters. However, in the second season, the show takes on a lighter tone, but unfortunately the tone shift didn't do much and the show got canceled just after 26 episodes. This show premiered on Cartoon Network in 2011. The series follows more of a sitcom formula rather than the classic slapstick gag comedy like in its previous incarnations. The show revolves around 2 roommates, Buzz and Daffy, living together in the suburbs of Los Angeles. Technically, it's Buzz's house and Daffy's just mooching off of him. This cartoon is more adult-oriented and dialogue-driven than any previous Looney Tunes series. Lola Bunny also became a recurring character. Also, we are introduced to Tina Russo, who later became the love interest of Daffy Duck. The Looney Tunes show is a take on how classic Looney Tunes characters would have acted in the modern era, while still maintaining their quirky personalities and doing wacky antics. The series also has a short animated music video that airs in the middle of each episode that's usually performed by a Looney Tunes character. as well as the CG short starring Wile E, Coyote, and the Roadrunner.
Going down the rabbit hole, where we go where no one knows. Obstacles round every bend. Let's see where the tunnel ends.
Previously under the title name Wabbit, Warner Brothers Animation produced a series for Boomerang and Cartoon Network. The series was introduced at Cartoon Network's Upfront in 2014. The series was created to replace the Looney Tunes show. Season 1 focused on Bugs Bunny and his pal Squeaks the Squirrel, with new adventures in the form of shorts. In the later seasons, Daffy Duck and Porky Pig joined the major cast, and a couple other Looney Tunes characters make recurring appearances. In Europe, the show was known as Bugs for Season 1. Originally, the series was planned to air solely on Boomerang, but the show aired on Cartoon Network on September 15 due to last-minute scheduling modifications. This series is developed by Peter Braungart, the creator of Cartoon Network's Uncle Grandpa. The series made its global premiere at the Annecy International Animated Film Festival and is the successor to the new Looney Tunes. At the time of this recording, the series hasn't been released, but will be released on HBO Max in May 27, 2020. According to Kevin Riley, Chief Content Officer at HBO Max, their focus is to expand their library for kids and family programming, so they're doing that by reintroducing some of the most cherished and iconic characters. The series will be a part of the children and household programming on HBO Max that will also consist of Sesame Street and the Adventure Time specials. There's also going to be a live-action Looney Tunes show on HBO called Toon Out, but at the time of this recording, no more information has been available. From the early 30s to right now in the 21st century, it seems that Looney Tunes will always live on in some form of new media. But what's most important about this Academy Award-winning series is that it has given countless entertainment to several generations all over the world.
Yeah, that's all, folks. Oh, oops, that's all, folks.